Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned K-5 STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I'm here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. If the thought of managing behavior during STEM or Makerspace time makes you nervous, especially with all the back to school excitement or the excitement that comes with brand new projects, this mini episode is for you. Yes, STEM can get loud, but that doesn't mean it has to feel chaotic. In this clip from episode 150, I'm breaking down how I kept things structured even during open-ended building times. I also talk about how I group students a little bit and how I like to manage supplies like tape and glue, which are very popular items in a makerspace. I know that these practical tips will help you feel more confident heading into the new school year or whenever you start your makerspace. And these are things that I have done year after year and continue to do. And I think that you will appreciate these tips. So you have an idea of how to organize your makerspace. What about the behavior management? Do you feel like your kids are getting a little too wild because they are creating? It might get loud. All of these lessons, the kids are going to get loud. I can't tell you that they're not going to be loud because they are. That's how it goes. I got so used to it. It is what it is. But being loud is different than not doing what you're supposed to do. So make sure you understand the difference with that and what's happening in your class. When it comes to the behavior management, it also is about the way your lesson is formatted and the systems and routines of that structure. When students would come in for my lessons, and this is true for all of my lessons, and even when I teach after school clubs, I do not let kids get the supplies right away. That is not happening. I am going to help them with that transition time and teach them that mini lesson that is involved with the engineering design process. Keep it really short, have that background knowledge, tell them anything they need to know about supplies, and most of the time is work time. Also, make sure you are leaving time at the end to clean up. A makerspace project might take longer to clean up than a robotics lesson. Keep that in mind. I would give kids about 10 minutes. I would try 10 minutes to start. And depending on the class, some classes could clean up in 5. So play around with that time. It might change with the class. That is the overall structure of the lesson, but let's break it down throughout the days. At the beginning of your makerspace lesson, you probably want kids to be imagining different ideas and planning. If your kids are having a hard time planning and coming up with ideas, especially if you have a newer program, you might need to give them more examples. Those examples can be things like things in real life, examples of pictures of things students have built in the past. You might even have to build a few examples to get the ground running. For makerspace projects, I don't typically teach students you have to do it this way, step by step by step. Now, maybe for an after-school program, that might be the case, but in the classroom setting, I do have a challenge I want them to solve, but I'm not going to show you step by step on how to do it. I might show them step by step in a mini lesson on how to do a certain strategy. For example, with one of my STEM lessons, STEM race cars in STEM amusement park, there is a part in that project where students have to add a wheel and axle on their car and allow it to move. This is pretty tricky, and I would always get a ton of questions on this strategy. So one of the days during the mini lesson, I just showed the kids how to do that. It didn't mean I was showing them how to build their car. I was just showing them that piece of their car that everybody was going to need, and then the rest was up to them. So those kinds of strategies, just like if you were teaching math, like we're learning lots of strategies, I would teach them those kinds of things as they would come up. It depends on the lesson, and that was really helpful. When grouping students, this is up to you if you want students to choose their groups or you assign them for them. I did both. It actually depends on the class. Some groups do a great job choosing their partners and some don't. If you have classes that get out of control really quick, you might need to keep them in groups of 2. This is really rare. Some might need to be in groups of 1. I've only had to do that a couple of times, but it happens. And it is really sad, but at the same time, your job is also as the teacher to keep kids safe and help them be successful. And if that's where they're at, that's where they're at. I wouldn't do more than 4 kids. 3 is my favorite because I feel like everybody can get involved, but no more than 4. It just gets too crazy. And at that point, you should just have partnerships. And anyway, what's also going to help them in that building process is really giving students that time to plan. This is going to help them in that creation. They may or may not build everything exactly how they drew the picture, but this is going to help them get the ideas out of their brain and have a starting point. And if you do add in Makerspace money, which again, go back to episodes 5 and 6, I explain that whole process. But if you use that system, that's also going to help students critically think more about what supplies they are using and why they are using them. The more you give specific tasks in these creative projects, kids are going to stay on task a lot better. If there is a problem they are trying to solve, that's going to help a lot better. So if you are doing roller coasters and you are wanting them to time how fast the marble goes through the track and keep track of the time, they're going to be a lot more motivated to do that project instead of just build a roller coaster, have a good time. If you have those specific challenges they are trying to solve, that's going to help so much with behavior management. And that is going back to engagement. Are they being engaged in the project? Do they have a purpose? And so these things really blend together. You might need to rethink the lessons you're teaching. That sometimes can be a problem when it comes to the behavior management. For some specific supplies, I also have rules set in place. A big one is with tape. And if you follow me on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _, I talk about tape a lot because I think it's actually really funny. And it is a weird thing that STEM teachers have in common. I'm very specific with tape. Tape is not a free-for-all. You get 1 foot of tape. I wrap it on a popsicle stick. I've also seen people put it on a ruler, and that is all the tape you get. And I do have part of the budget. You could buy unlimited tape, but it's like more than half of their budget. Most kids don't actually buy that one. And so I'm very specific about the amount of tape. I am not very strict on glue sticks. They're pretty cheap. I am actually trying to get more into glue sponges. And I've always seen it. I've never tried it, but I am actually going to test out glue sponges with some Makerspace clubs that I'm going to be running in my community. And if you haven't heard of glue sponges, I did ask my husband if he knew, but he teaches high school Spanish. He's like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I just wanted to see if all teachers knew. But a glue sponge is you just have like a sandwich Ziploc container and you put a sponge in there and you pour liquid glue on top. And when kids are wanting to glue pieces of paper and smaller things, you dab your paper on the sponge and it gets it all sticky on the back and then you paste it where you want it. This is an older technique. I've never done it, but I really want to try it because the one thing that really bothers me about glue sticks is the kids won't put the caps on. And so I'm going to try it. I'm going to let you know. Follow me on Instagram. I'll let you know what I think about them in a STEM space. But I actually don't have any limit on glue. That wasn't a battle I wanted to fight. With hot glue guns, it depended on the year if I wanted to use hot glue guns. I like to use the lower temperature hot glue guns. One thing with that, sometimes they do get clogged over time, and it could be because you might have the wrong glue sticks. Some of the hot glue gun sticks are made for lower temperature. And so if you have a station for hot glue guns, I would use them 2nd through 5th grade. Make sure that the station is at waist height and they're not on the ground because that can be a little bit of an issue. So I do have specific procedures in place for hot glue guns. I have some posters in my TBT shop you can grab. I think it's Kelly Hogan. She actually has those in her classroom. She put them in frames, which I thought was such a cute idea to hang up posters. So that is something I might do at a Makerspace. But again, it depends on my budget. if I have enough money for the hot glue gun sticks, and honestly, if I want to manage it or not, and it depends on the class. Usually it's just tape. If I'm feeling nice, we'll do hot glue guns, but it's not very often that we did. When it comes to the projects, I make sure that their projects are smaller, that they can fit in a grocery bag or a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. A few exceptions to some projects like roller coasters, those are going to be a little bit bigger. But I do make sure their projects are smaller because they're going to finish them a lot quicker. When you have limited time, you want the projects to be a little bit smaller. That's definitely going to help. And then with that cleanup time, I have seen teachers have specific jobs where you need to do certain things. I don't do that. Again, I didn't like managing all of that. So I would say, okay, here's all the things you need to do to get cleaned up. When you're cleaned up, you're sitting at your clean table. When everybody was sitting down, I would walk around, just make sure everything's good to go before they could line up. So it kind of maybe looked a little bit chaotic, but everybody is putting things away. Sometimes I would bribe them where whichever tables clean up first, I'll give you a prize or you get some sort of incentive. So that can really help too, just to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. With those projects, I would have them store them in those grocery bags or Ziploc bags. And I had those big fabric tubs and just binder clipped their teacher's name on it. And they would put all of their plans and their projects in that bucket. And then I had a shelf in my classroom. If anything needed to stay standing up, those could be sitting on the shelf. At the very, very, very end of the unit, you can have students take a picture or take a video of their work. I loved using Seesaw for this purpose. So everybody gets to take it home. And then maybe one student can bring the project home. And if nobody wanted to bring the project home, I would actually have them destruct the project where any pieces that can be reused would actually go back in the Makerspace and have a new life. I hope these tips help you with some common Makerspace management systems that definitely need to take place in the classroom, whether you've started them or you had an idea or you just need to start from scratch. If you want to grab the hot glue gun safety posters that I mentioned, I'll link those for you in the show notes, or you can find them in my TPT shop, Naomi Meredith. If you're looking for more support when setting up your entire STEM space, systems and routines, and how to plan lessons, check out my STEM Teacher 101 course. You will get all of the lessons, resources, and checklists and can finish everything at your own pace. There's even a private podcast feature, which I think you will love. For being a podcast listener, you can get $30 off my signature STEM Teacher 101 course using this code PODCASTBFF. All one word, no spaces, PODCASTBFF. And if you're enjoying these bite-sized episodes, let me know. I'd love to keep creating quick wins that help support you in your STEM classroom and help you get going on your way. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, naomimeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.